one in Nagpur, Vidarbha, Marathwada, the Konkan in Kudal, and of course Andheri in Mumbai. And we will only employ engineers from that region. The whole idea was that however difficult the task is, those guys have to prove themselves. And I really am proud that those guys...
That deserves a little round of applause.
No. The credit is to those guys who literally used to sleep in the factory because they were so charged up. This is the first digital exchange and we got to run it well. So that was... Coming back to, this is by the time my wife had taken her retirement from the Navy and she was practicing in Pune as she's doing now here. So obviously my choice was to come back to Pune. So scouts came to my rescue. One of my old scouts friends, he was a senior general manager at Unisys, and then he was the first MD of Tata Unisys here, Shrikant Bedekar. I met him while he was running Tata Unisys in Mumbai. And he said, Anand, why don't we together start a software export unit in Pune? I said, well, great idea, let's do it. I had no idea, frankly, what the software would be like, or the export, or the offshore developmental part, to be honest. But he said, let's do it. I said, yeah, let's do it. So this is how it actually happened. And his company in Detroit was called Yojana, so we obviously call it. Our company here is Yojana Systems, and our task was to set up this unit. And there was no EOU, as you said, outside SEAMS that time. So one had to go inside the SEAMS if you want to start a unit. And there was no STPI, so Software Technology Park of India, which is so helpful nowadays. We had to go to CCI, Chief Controller of Imports and Exports, whose office was in Mumbai, and they had no clue about sending software through satellite. And though we had speed of only 1200 baud, but still it was an electronic export, and they were used to having a hard kind of brick mortar export. So it's quite a challenge. Set up 100% EOU with all the regulations, everything. Even to get a loan from the bank was a big task because the rule was that all software units would be given loan from the head office. Even though the local people had much more power. For example, Pune, the fellow can sanction a 10 crore banking loan to a company as long as it's a brick and mortar company. But when it came to software, even for 10 lakhs, we had to get it from the head office. This was Bank of India. And when you go to the head office, they said, well, don't waste our time because we only deal with 100 crores and above. so you're kind of like Tushanku, neither here nor there, trying to get loan for yourself. But yeah, it took a year and a half, but yeah, we finally set that up. And we had no precedence. That was the big problem. Every time you went, they said, what is the precedence? So then we handed over all those files to Persistent, Nara Deshpande, who probably did that same job in 2.5 months, which we took 18 months to do. So that was...
He trivialized a number, 1.2 kilobytes per second. Let me tell you how important that is. Today you work at 21 Mbps, which is called broadband. This is 1.2 kbps, and they were running a 100% export-oriented unit. And I'm sure it was difficult, but that difficult is just a word. So how did you manage the delivery? How did this whole... So I'm sure the process and the whole delivery excellence would have been the biggest challenge and probably the only way out of that 1.2
huge challenge, to be honest. We really had one engineer during the morning period, pre-lunch period, to do downloads for the day, and then another engineer post-lunch to do the uploads of the day. We were in Bhosri Electronic Estate. We had a beautiful unit, right? Like any other new units that you now see. And Mr. H.K. Firodia, at that time, he was the president of the MCCI. He used to come virtually every second month to visit us. He said, I feel very happy coming to you, Anand. That's Anand's father. And he really encouraged us to pursue. He said, this is the future. And whatever difficulty you have, from the MCCI will sort it out. So our problem was that we had 3 exchanges before we could export. So from the Bhosri, it would go to Karve Road Exchange. From the Karve Road Exchange, it would go to Mahajishinde Exchange near the Pune Club, and then from there it would go to BSNL exchange, and then it will go out. So we had 3 exchanges to deal with, and anywhere they could be break down, and they used to be breakdowns. So we really had a lot of problems, particularly bigger files to send. So then we got into the packetization ourselves. We did a lot of those innovations to at least when it stopped, we could send the next packet so that we didn't have to start all over again. And it was a network called Compuser. Some of you may have been aware of. No, I'm not sure, but yeah, it was a Compuser network which stood us well. But what stood us well were 2, 3 things. One, we're doing really something very high. This was only the procedural part of it. We're doing Windows 3.0. It was the B kind of version. It was beta version. It was not even the final version. And along with that, we got a huge volume of undocumented 3.0 exchange. That means whatever was not there was supposed to have been read through this huge. And this is all Srikant Bedekar got it from US. And we were members of a lot of forums, various professional forums. It's like an angling of like fishing. You put your thing there, and then a lot of people used to then question you or you question them, and that way we did a lot of learning through those forums. And I still remember we're doing that time Windows, we're doing OS2, and we're doing a lot of video related work, wide area networking products. Some of the products were like email. Now what they are, it was called message posting that time, but it was obviously a very proprietary network of Unisys. But that high-end work caught the fancy of a lot of people. They used to say, you guys are actually sitting in Pune in India and doing this. So, and we had some magnificent people. I used to call them Magnificent Seven. The first 7 people who joined us, and we introduced the system of interviewing them by telephone across from Detroit. That was again the first time. We never had interviews done across the board. Even while recruiting, I remember the first person I recruited was Ravi Gokte and from Telco Electronics. I had to really convince his father first that he should leave and join this mad startup Yojana. He was worried about. He said, Mr. Khandekar, you look gentlemanly, but I'm retired, and he's the guy who. Are you sure what you're doing? And I could see the pain in his eyes. That one had to. That pain I had to internalize myself, to be honest, and that was one of the driving force with all these people whom I had recruited at that time. So,
and that is when in '85, when he came out of Metron, he had no idea what software means. And 4 years they created this company Yojana, which was top 7. What did you call them? 7 wonders.
The Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven.
There's a movie called Magnificent Seven. I don't know if you've seen. It's a Western movie, and they were really one of the topmost people I've ever had. They coming from various top companies in India at that time, and they decided to put baits on a small unit like that.
Right. And I think for all budding entrepreneurs and also for the smaller ones, the only takeaway I have is that when an opportunity presents itself, don't think about whether you know how to do it or whether you have the resources. Figure it out, but have the courage to first take that up and say, yes, I can do it. So from Yojana, you moved on to be the managing director of Motorola's software development center in Bangalore. That was a big shift from Pune to Bangalore with Motorola as an MD. What happened after that?
Right. Earlier, while we were in Meltron, we had a joint venture with Motorola, because those days no company could have any independent production of electronics in the country. They had to join with one of the Trons, Uptron, Keltron, and Meltron. So Motorola chose us. They found us a small unit but very entrepreneurial unit, and therefore the Bell, Bharat Electronics were extremely unhappy with us and jealous to an extent, because they were expecting, Motorola would just walk into their office and say, we want a JV with you, but they didn't. So, but it couldn't materialize. We had signed up because of foreign exchange difficulties. This SKD, CKD units could not be even brought initially because there was no foreign exchanges at the time. We're talking about 1991 when we had the financial crisis. We had the Narasimha Rao government to start the economic reforms program. So that didn't come, but I came to know a lot of senior people at Motorola. So when we were doing this Yojana, quite a few of them came and visited me back in Pune, Yojana, and they saw on a big blackboard, we had written a huge process, how to do offshore development process, because we are doing all the work in Yojana, offshore development. So right from the initial gathering of information, functional specs, and then design specs, and of course we had very strict coding standards, and then test mechanisms and everything else. So they were quite pleasantly surprised that the small unit is actually running a very elaborate process. And Motorola that time was setting up a unit in Bangalore precisely for that, because they had everything hardware, and their CEO Gary Tucker had the vision of saying that next Motorola will be software based, and therefore they wanted a Six Sigma software unit to be started. They couldn't do it in US because the US guys said no, software can never have Six Sigma. It is all very mercurial, and it can't follow any process. It will be creating no such thing. So they set up that unit with about 70 people. They achieved SCI level 5, as probably the first organization to achieve that. But then Motorola wanted to take that further into a commercial business, naturally, because that's a lab unit initially. But then you have to grow it to larger numbers. So this is where that task was given to me, to say that you grow it to about 400 people, maintaining the SCI level 5. And it's easy Six Sigma to do on a hardware because the machines are set up and then they repeat. The repeatability for human beings for Six Sigma or a quality which was 5.2 defects per million line of code was a big task. And you couldn't oversee them over the shoulder. So we had to have a huge amount of efforts in terms of initial training. We are like an island in a sea of level 1, which is chaos, organizations. I'm talking about 94. And we had to convert it into a level 5 setup. So we had 6 weeks of very focused development program, training program for process, mentally getting them tuned to the idea of following the process. All the instructors came from within the organization. So they carry conviction because they said, we were like you, but now we are different, and this is how we do things. And we were actually able to do that over a period. And that time, I think now you are aware of a thing called PCMM, People CMM. We did that without having that PCMM. In fact, what we realized that unless you prepare people mentally and attitude-wise, you cannot achieve higher levels. So we kind of worked out what are the attributes required in people in order to achieve level 2, level 3, level 4, and that got then formalized into PCMM, which is now, as you know, that for every level of the software development process you have a people development as well. And that was actually done by Motorola's head of HR, Glenn Gianco, who was the committee chairman, and he took a lot of inputs from Bangalore for the PCMM process. So it was a wonderful challenge, and I still have lots of friends from Motorola. In fact, that's one of the things, to be honest, Anand, we discussed the other day as well, that going along the line, whether it was the Navy or whether it was Motorola or Yojana, Melton, everywhere, I met lots of people and I met wonderful friends. And that friend